1,000 pounds of sugar. Also, it can be divided over time. Okay? So for example, but the condition is I give you the money on the spot, the whole thing. Alright? Now, you say, we agree that you give me 300 pounds in a month, then another 300 pounds in a month, in 2 months, then the rest in the 3rd month. That is permissible. So we can divide that over a period of time. Alright? وإن أسلم ثمنا واحدا في شيئين لم يجز حتى يبين ثمن كل جنس. If we agree, what this point says, if we agree on 2 things. Okay? For example, you say, I give you $1,000, so you can give me in 3 months or X amount of time, you give me 1,000 pounds of sugar and dates, or sugar and rice. Alright? This is not permissible this way. Because I did not mention how much sugar and how much rice. We said we have to be specific. So the way we can do this is, I give you the $1,000 today, in 3 months you give me 500 pounds of sugar and 400 pounds of rice. 500 pounds of sugar, 200 pounds of rice, 300 pounds of sugar, 500, whatever the agreement. But if we are talking about 2 products that will be turned in at the end of the time, okay, at the end of the agreement, on the date of the agreement, which is 3 months, we have to specify exactly how much of each one, or how much the quantity, or the weight, or the quality. All these descriptions need to be there. Alright? So I cannot just say, here's $1,000, in 3 months you give me sugar and dates, or sugar and rice. I did not mention how much sugar, how much rice. Or you give me 1,000 pounds of sugar and rice. That is wrong too. 1,000, maybe rice is cheaper than sugar, for example, or vice versa. So I give you 900 pounds of this and 100 pounds. Alright? So we have to specify. Alright. Then he said, وَمَنْ أَسْلَفَ فِي شَيْءٍ لَمْ يَصْرُفْهُ إِلَى غَيْرِهِ. If we agree on rice, we leave it rice. I don't come 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a month later, tell you, let's make it rice, let's make it sugar. We agree on rice, I give you money for 1,000 pounds of rice, it stays rice until you get your rice. Okay? Cannot switch. وَلَا يَصَحُّ بَيْعُ الْمُسَلَّمِ فِيهِ قَبْلَ قَبْضِهِ. Another point is the agreement. Here's $1,000, you give me 1,000 pounds of rice, this kind, white, whatever, soft, whatever it is, rice in a year. Okay? So who's gonna get the rice? Me, after a year. I cannot go, let's say 3 months later, I need money. I cannot go and sell it. Come to you, to a third party, alright, and tell you, listen, I have 1,000 pounds of rice or sugar with so and so, he has to give it to me 9 months from now, and it's worth, then it's gonna worth, let's say, $1,000. So here, give me $800 and, okay, and it's yours. Even though some of the ulama talked about this point, and usually it's a very long discussions amongst the ulama, but Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and contemporary ulama said this is permissible. Okay, this is permissible if some conditions are met. One condition is you cannot make profit. You cannot make profits out of it. Alright? And the reason for that, because you cannot make profit on something you cannot guarantee. Okay? You cannot guarantee. يعني no لا ربح على ما لم تضمن. You cannot guarantee, then you cannot make profit. Alright? So this is the condition needs to be met for this transaction to be permissible. Okay? And also riba. Riba need to be avoided. And when I mean riba, there are some specific things, they are riba in them. So we said some of the times that we said if you exchange 2 types of food together, same kind of food, they have to be on the spot. Remember? And they have to be amount exact. So maybe I will exchange the same kind for earlier time. So here we don't have equality, and we don't have on the spot. So here we fall in the riba. So all these things need to be avoided. Okay. وقال ولا الحوالة به, Meaning, I bought 1,000 pounds of rice in a year. I paid for it. Alright? It's worth $1,000. Someone who lend me money sometimes for $1,000, for example, $500, whatever, and now he comes to ask me for the money. I cannot tell him, go to so-and-so who has to give me the rice in a year and take money from him, and then I will collect the difference. Alright? That is not allowed. In Salam, you cannot do that. You cannot send someone who owes you money, or you owe someone money. Any kind of that you cannot transfer. Okay? You cannot transfer it someone or turn someone to take care of it. It's yours, and then you can do whatever with it when you get it. وتجوز الإقالة فيه أو في بعضه لأنه فسخ. Okay. Also, it's alright if, let's say, you know what, after 2 months I wanted 1,000 pounds, after 2 months I realized it's too much. So I come to you and they say, listen, I paid you for 1,000 pounds, I don't want any more, I want 500 pounds. You agree, I agree, then there is no problem with that. Alright? There is no problem with that. We can, and we can cancel the whole contract, period. Also that is permissible if the agreement takes place. Because this aqd is lazim. Aqd al-salam, lazim. And what we mean by lazim, once you become part of it, you cannot break out of it. Unless there is a mutual agreement. Why? Because if the person who's going to turn in the food for you a year later, alright, or the sugar, he takes money because he needs it. Because he needs to invest it, he needs to do whatever, he needs to produce the sugar, whatever it is. So now you come and you say, cancel this, and that is a problem. Alright? And we will talk about another kind of contract, which is similar to salam. Even some of the ulama, the jumhur, actually, the opinion of the majority, they say it's a salam contract. Except the Hanaf, they say it's completely different contract, and perhaps the Hanaf have the right opinion, which is aqd al-istisna, which we will talk about. And that is when I give you money to make something for me, custom order. We don't say that I have the choice to break the contract whenever I want. Because I give you $1,000 to make me, let's say, a living room, and then you're a carpenter and you start making the living room and you buy the stuff and you put your time and this, and 2 days before the date to turn it in, I come and I tell you cancel. You already invested. Alright? So when we say aqd al-salam, we say aqd lazim. The opposite of lazim is jaiz. Okay? It's not exactly the opposite, but in this aspect, it's lazim means you are, it's binding. This contract is binding. You cannot just break out of it whenever you want, unless you mutual agreement. Jaiz means I can leave whenever I want. I can cancel whenever I want. Alright? So when we say aqd al-salam, we say lazim. Must. Once you agree, you have to proceed and go through with it, unless the mutual agreement. Alright. So let's see some kind of transactions that we can apply this kind of contract into contemporary transactions, so we can see how it can be beneficial. Okay? Why a bank would do something like that? Why a bank, for example, and we're talking about banks because that is now the financial institutions, mainly banks. Why a bank will give someone $1,000 or $10,000 for something that the bank gonna get a year later? Alright? Who knows?
Maybe the price of the commodity is high now, and they think it will be lower later.
The opposite.
The opposite.
No, if it's the way you're saying it, then no one with sound mind will go for it. The opposite. Because usually, if I gonna lend you the money, okay, we're not talking about lending here. We're talking about buying. This contract is buying. I give you the money and you sell me the product, but I'm gonna get it later. Alright? Because if we say it's lending, then it's riba. because any